Hello everyone, and welcome to the CircuitPython Weekly for November 16th, 2020. This is the time of the week that we get together to talk about all things CircuitPython. I'm Katney, and I'm sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. CircuitPython is a version of Python that is designed to run on tiny computers called microcontrollers. CircuitPython development is primarily sponsored by Adafruit, so if you want to support them and CircuitPython, consider purchasing hardware from adafruit.com. This meeting is hosted on the Adafruit Discord server. You can join anytime by going to adafru.it/discord. We hold the meeting in the CircuitPython text channel and the CircuitPython voice channel. Let's see. This meeting normally happens on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, except when it coincides with a U.S. holiday. If the meeting time is changed, we'll notify you via Discord, and if you wish to be notified about changes to the meeting, we can add you to the CircuitPythonistas Discord role. There's also a calendar that's available that we try to keep updated, so you can subscribe to that as well. On that note, I will mention that we usually move the meetings around surrounding Christmas and New Year's. So pay attention around that time, and we'll be sure to let you know what we decide to do. This meeting is recorded. We record audio from the voice channel and video from the text channel. If you'd rather not have your voice recorded, you're still welcome to participate. The video of this meeting will be posted to YouTube, and the audio is released as a podcast. If you find this podcast is not available on your favorite service, please let us know. There is a notes doc that accompanies the meeting and the recording. If you wish to participate but you don't have a microphone, or you'd rather not have your voice recorded, you can add your updates to the notes doc, and we'll read them off as we get to you in the list. As well, if you wish to participate but you can't make the meeting, you can leave hug reports and status updates for us in the document, and we'll read them off during the meeting. The notes document also contains timestamps, so you can go through the video and skip around to the parts that interest you most. If you're just listening in, please let us know that you're lurking and we'll skip over you. If possible, please add your name to the notes doc with lurking after it. Otherwise, let us know in the text channel so we can get the notes doc updated. It's important that your lurking status is in the notes doc because that's what we read from as we go through. If you wish to speak during the meeting, you'll need to be added to the CircuitPythonistas role. Please let anyone in the meeting know who is an admin or moderator to add you to the role if you're not already a member. If you don't want to be added to the role, you can still participate text only. Just let us know. This meeting is held in 5 parts. The first part is community news, which is a look at all things CircuitPython and Python on hardware in the community. It's a preview of our Python on microcontrollers newsletter. The second part is the state of CircuitPython, the libraries, and Blinka. It is a statistical overview of the entire project, and it's a chance for us to look at the project by the numbers, separate from what we're all up to. The third part is hug reports. Hug reports is an opportunity to highlight the good things that folks are doing and taking the time to recognize awesome folks in our community. This section is held as a round robin, where I will begin, and then we'll go through the list alphabetically, looping up to the top, and give everyone who wants to a chance to participate. If you're lurking, I'll skip over you. If you're text only or missing the meeting, I'll read off your notes when I get to you in the list. Next, fourth part is status updates. Status updates is an opportunity to sync up on what we've been up to. Take a couple minutes to talk about what you've been doing in the last week since the last meeting, and what you'll be up to over the next week until the next meeting. It's also an opportunity for folks to provide tips and tricks in response to others' status updates. The section also is held in a round robin to give everyone a chance who wants to a chance to participate. And if you're lurking, again, we'll skip over you. And if you're text only, again, I will read it off. The fifth part is in the weeds. In the weeds is an opportunity for more long-form discussions. These discussions can come out of status updates or be something that you've identified ahead of time is too long for status updates. If you have an In the Weeds topic now, please add it to the notes document along with your name in the In the Weeds section at the end of the document. If you think of them during the meeting, please add them as you come up with them. The idea here is that we're not waiting around at the end to figure out what people want to discuss in the weeds. When we get to that section, I will turn it over to whomever added the topic to begin the discussion. If you're text only, make a note of that so I can read it off. And that covers how the whole meeting will go. And with that, we will move on to community news. So the first thing up is the Adafruit magtag CircuitPython e-ink display. It is the latest bit of low-power magnetic magic from Adafruit, with a 2.9-inch e-paper panel that is 296 by 128 pixels and capable of 4-bit grayscale, and it has an ESP32S2 processor, and definitely runs CircuitPython. Next up, we have a choose-your-own-adventure game that uses the touchscreen control on the Adafruit PyPortal. And that was posted to Twitter. Next up is a grayscale party parrots on one of the new StemmaQT grayscale displays. Next we have from Cedar Grove, putting the final touches on the Nuevo Workshop corrosion monitor, using CircuitPython and Adafruit I/O this time around instead of Arduino and LoRa packet radio. Big thanks to Dave Estells for the groovy LCARS display design. And that was posted to Instagram. This was posted to YouTube. It's CircuitPython DC motor control, how-to using Pulse I/O and the L289N driver board with an Adafruit Metro M4 Express. And finally, I thought this one was definitely worth including. It's a shockingly low number. That is a Days Till Christmas screen on the AdaBox PyPortal information device, and that was posted to Reddit. And it says 45 days until Christmas, and I imagine that that may not have been posted today, so the number's even lower. So this is actually a preview of our Python for Microcontrollers newsletter. It's emailed out every Tuesday. The archives are available at adafruitdaily.com. It highlights the latest Python on hardware-related news around the web, including CircuitPython, Python, and MicroPython developments. You can contribute to this newsletter if you have any projects or news or ideas by going to the newsletter on GitHub and putting in a PR, or you can tag @an_engineer on Twitter, or email anb@adafruit.com. All of those are options for you to be able to contribute to the newsletter. And if you want to sign up for it, please go to adafruitdaily.com. It's a completely separate website from Adafruit. There's no spam, and you have the option to sign up for a number of newsletters, but the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter is available there as well. And that is community news. So next up is the state of CircuitPython, the libraries, and Blinka. This is a statistical overview of the project. It gives us a chance to look at the health of the project by the numbers, and see what's going on separate from what tasks we are all working on. I will first talk about the project overall, and then I will turn it over to Scott to talk about the core. I will talk about the libraries, and Melissa will talk about Blinka. So first up, overall, we had 30 pull requests merged by 17 authors, which is an amazing number. There's some names there I don't recognize: Breefield, Chad Kuster, Last Cool Name Left, Dao Shan. That might be, yeah, those are the names I don't recognize. So thank you to all of our authors, and there were 13 reviewers. I believe Gambler21 is new to reviewing. I could be wrong, but I don't remember seeing them there before. And the more reviewers we have, the better, because we're able to support more authors, as is indicated by that high number of authors. And we had 27 closed issues by 14 people and 13 opened by 11 people. So the project overall is down on issues, which is excellent to see. And with that, I will turn it over to Scott to talk about the core.
Awesome. Thank you, Kattni. Okay, so for the core stats, we had 4 pull requests merged from 4 different authors. So thank you to all our authors. We had 4 reviewers to match up as well. We have 25 open pull requests, which is a bit higher than we normally have. Although a number of those are open 0 days. We don't really have any that have been languishing a bit too long. But please keep that in mind, that if you have an open pull request, if it's not going to get checked in, please close it. If you're still working on it, either make sure it's draft or otherwise. So take a look at that. Issues wise, we had 3 closed issues by 2 people and 5 open by 4 people. So we're net up 2 for a total of 329 open issues. We track the severity or importance of those based on the milestone. So we have 1 issue not assigned a milestone, and we have 0 for 6.0 open, which is really good. And then we have 28 total marked with 6.x. So things we want to do in the 6x series. And then we also have support in long term and libraries and stuff too. So if you want to see all of that, check out github.com/adafruit/CircuitPython/issues for all the details there. Overall, we're really close to a 6.0 stable. Dan will talk about that more, and then expect to see a 6.1 pre-release as well. And as always, if you're using the ESP32S2, please use the 6.1 pre-releases. We're just doing a lot of work on the S2 right now, and that's where you're going to see it. And that's it for the core.
Thanks, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is the libraries, and this covers all of the Adafruit CircuitPython libraries, which is every library that begins with Adafruit _CircuitPython_. We had 25 pull requests merged from 13 authors, including all the names I read off earlier, so thank you to all of our new contributors, and 11 reviewers, leaving us with 31 open pull requests. In terms of merged pull requests, we closed out 2 that were 86 and 75 days old respectively, which is great. We have some older PRs that have been sitting for various and sundry reasons, and so it's really great to see that we're still paying attention to those and getting those taken care of. We had 22 issues closed by 12 people and 7 open by 7 people, meaning we are definitely covering taking care of some of those issues, and that leaves us with 228 open issues. There are 9 good first issues. If you are interested in contributing to CircuitPython, the libraries are a great place to start. It gives you the opportunity to contribute using Python versus contributing to the core. You can go to circuitpython.org/contributing, and you will see all of this information available. There will be a list of open pull requests, a list of open issues, and some library infrastructure issues. And all of those are opportunities for you. If you are looking to contribute by reviewing, you can click on any of the PRs, take a look at them for syntax. If you have the hardware, test them. Just let us know that you've taken a look. Any help is amazing. If you want to actually start tackling putting in your own PRs, take a look at the open issues. Those 9 good first issues are excellent if you are just getting started. If you're looking for something more complicated or involved, try searching for bug or enhancement, and that will give you a bunch of places to start. There is a guide on contributing to CircuitPython using Git and GitHub, and that will get you started on the actual process of contributing. So don't let either of those things intimidate you. The guide is available, and we are always available to help. We want to enable you to join us if that is on your list of things to do. So in terms of library updates, we had 1 new library in the last 7 days, and that's the Adafruit CircuitPython magtag library, and a number of library updates that I will not read off. However, I will note that there was another update to the CircuitPython community bundle, which is excellent to see as well. In terms of libraries, we're continuing to see more libraries added, which is great. I'm always excited to see the updates to the CircuitPython community bundle. It seems like at least weekly there has been some kind of update either to an existing library or adding a new library. For your own information, the CircuitPython community bundle is libraries that aren't necessarily supported by Adafruit but work with CircuitPython, and we want to make them available to all of you folks, and so we created the community bundle. Everyone who's been working on libraries, thank you very much. The continued updates are great to see, and I think that's about what I've got for libraries. So with that, I will turn it over to Melissa to talk about Blinka.
Hello, this is for Blinka, which is our CircuitPython compatibility layer for Raspberry Pi and other single board computers. This week we had one pull request merged by one author and 2 reviewers. There are 5 open pull requests at the moment, as far as dating back to several years ago, it looks like. There were 2 closed issues by 2 people and 1 open by 1 person. Leaving a net of 46 open issues. There were 1,983 PyPI downloads in the last week, and we currently support 60 boards on Blinka. And that's it.
Congratulations on 60 boards.
Thanks.
All right. And that is the state of CircuitPython, the libraries, and Blinka, which means next up is Hug Reports. Hug Reports is an opportunity for us to highlight the awesome things that folks are doing in our community. Basically, if you had a positive interaction or you wanted to highlight something that someone helped you with or something that you watched someone help someone else with or that sort of thing, this is the time in this meeting that we take to make sure that we have the opportunity to highlight those folks. It is held as a round robin where I will start and read off my Hug Reports, and then I will go through the list alphabetically. There are some folks that are lurking that I will skip over. There are some folks that were text only or are lurking and have notes in the document, and I will read those notes as I get to them. So even if you're up next alphabetically, there may be notes that happen before it's your turn. And I will read those off and then let you know when it's time for you to read your own. So with that, take a timestamp and we'll get started. So first and foremost, a hug to Jeff for a much needed chat. I want to give a huge hug report to Foamy Guy for always stepping up to take on any quests. We had this came out of last week. John Park was trying to use the slideshow library with the magtag board, and it doesn't quite work the same. And he was able to get it to work, but the simple test that is in the library won't work as is. And I figured, Foamy Guy could take a look at it, asked him if he was willing, and of course he stepped right up, said he was already working with that library and that he would take care of getting it to work the same way. So, and then every time I've ever had any quests, he steps up. So huge hug report for that. Hug report to the community moderators on Discord for handling a flurry of issues in the last couple days. I came back to a lot of notifications, but everything had been handled, which is great. Hug report to Dan for doing the CircuitPython releases. We've been doing a lot of them, which was always our plan, was to try and do pretty consistent and often releases, but they are quite involved. And so it's excellent that Dan has been doing that, and I have a group hug. Next, I have notes for Kevin Thomas, who has a hug report for Foamy Guy for partnering with me to get the CircuitPython IoT Trivia OLED version tutorial started on the Feather S2 that we are looking to complete this week or early next week, and for helping me to build my Featherwing doubler prototyping add-on for Feather boards. Next up is Maker Melissa.
I had a hug report for those who are continuing to work on the request library and make it better. Hug report for Foamy Guy for continuing to contribute with the display and e-ink stuff, and a group hug in general.
Excellent, thank you. Next up, I have notes for 3 folks, and then Scott will be up. So first up, from Mark Gambler, hug report to Dan H for the great link to the GitHub tags and branches that he posted. Then I have some notes for Microdev, who has a group hug for the community, a hug report for Jeff E for working on consistent error checking in the ESP IDF calls, and to Dan H and Tan Newt for taking the Deep Sleep API even further. I have some notes from Mr. Certainly, who says, thanks to the entire mod team for an excellent job handling recent DM spam, and a group hug to everyone for everything you do, making this a place that so many are happy to be a part of. And next up is Scott.
Hello. Just to echo some of the other ones, hug report to all the Discord mods who helped deal with the DM spam increase. Especially, it's nice when I wake up in the morning and see that it's already been handled. So thank you to everybody for being responsive with that. Thank you to C. Walter for the supervisor level allocation changes. I'm excited to look at the PR. Thank you to Benny E. HH and Jepler for the immense help with the TLS issue. Yeah, living in the Pacific time zone is a superpower. Yeah, it's good, except all of the East Coast people have a chance to like send me email. So I wake up to it. And lastly, a hug report to Foamy Guy for helping folks on the Discord and releasing requests 1.8.1 over the weekend, which fixes the issue with split, I believe. And that's it for me.
Excellent. Thank you. Next up is Zoltan.
Thanks, Katni. So this week I have 2 hugs lined up. The first one should go to Scott for helping me out with an embarrassing mistake. Sorry, Scott, for that. But again, thanks for helping me out with that. And the second, I would like to acknowledge Jeff's suggestion on using function pointers. He dropped this comment 2 weeks ago in the weeds section that I sort of hijacked. And I started to work this out, and I realized that this was really a stroke of a genius, and it's a brilliant idea. So I really appreciate it, Jeff. And with that, back to you, Kathy.
All right, thank you. Next up, I have notes from a couple people. First up is C. Grover, who is text only today. Group hug to the team and community. To David Beasley, author of Python Essential Reference. I'm wearing out the 4th edition. Dog-eared corners, highlights, and penciled-in CircuitPython specifics abound. And to my brother for hours of discussions about coding, practice, and structure. Next, I have notes for Charles Burniford, who is text only as well, or lurking, but has a group hug to all. And next, I have one note from Dakota Redstone, who says lurking, but loving the entire Adafruit community. Hugs to all. Next up is Dan.
I'd like to thank Scott, who I've had continuing conversations with about working on the API, the user visible API for sleep. Those have been very helpful. Thanks to Jeff for a lot of work, especially over the weekend, on the TLS certificate issue on the ESP32S2, which he's found a very interesting thing, I think in conjunction with some other people, and submitted a pull request to ESP IDF for that. And thank you to you, Katni, for working on learn guides for these idiosyncratic new products that use the ESP32S2, which have weird printouts, weird bootloaders, and a number of other weirdnesses that require a whole new set of how do we explain this kind of thinking. All right.
Yeah, and thank you for helping with explaining that kind of thinking. So next up, I have notes from David Gloud, who says, regarding the PM 2.5, or PM25 library rather, to Katni and Foamy Guy for pushing my PR and adapting the relevant guide, and regarding the magtag library to Maker Melissa for the library and adding to CircuitPython.org, and Katni for the learn guide, and everyone else for the code examples. I have notes from Dave P., who's lurking but has a group hug for being a community that welcomes participation. I have notes from D. Harada, who is lurking but has a group hug. And next up is Foamy Guy.
All right, thanks, Katni. This week I have a hug for a GitHub user, IoT49. I think they might be new to the project, but they created a PR to add something called message pack into the core, which is kind of an interesting way to pack up data into a really small size, as far as I understand it, at least. I had never heard of that before, but that looks really cool. I'm excited to see what comes from that. To KMatch98 for making a quick fix in the bitmap label over the weekend. I found something where it wasn't initializing if the text was empty, and Kmatch got that fixed up real fast. Thank you to echo what David said. Thank you to Kattni for the magtag guide, and Melissa as well for the magtag library, and everyone else who's been doing work lately on the ESP32S2 port and the magtag in particular. I know it's gotten a lot of improvements over even just the last few days. So huge thanks for all of that. On Discord, Luz Theron Telemann. I've seen offering lots of great help to people in the Help with CircuitPython room. So big thanks there. And to, of course, the Discord moderators for helping deal with the wave of spams that came up last week. And then lastly, for Carter, made a really nice Learn Guide page that shows how to set up various external displays. So I think that'll be a great help. So thank you to Carter for that.
Excellent. Next up is Higher Effect.
Okay. Thanks this week to Scott for having a conversation, catching me up on some UDP stuff last week that I've been working on. Thanks to MinoDev on the Arduino end of things. I've been taking stuff over from CircuitPython and putting it in Arduino for the NeoPixel, and he's been helping out with answering some of my questions about that. Thanks just this morning to Jeff, Dan, and you, Kattni, for some Git tips that I got a little bit annoyed about. Thanks everybody who's working on the low power API. I've just kind of been lurking on that, but it looks really cool, and I'm excited about it. So yeah, that's it for me.
Excellent. Next up is Jeff.
Hi, I'm going to echo what a lot of people said and thank the mods for dealing with some of these bad actors over the weekend. It's unfortunate that they get to do their spam to people before we can stop them, but at least we cleaned up what we could. And thanks to Scott for our conversation. I think that was Friday where we synced up about SSL and just talked about a few other things. Thanks to Dan for continuing to take on the release process. Really excited to see version 6 come out. And thanks to C. Walter for continued work on improving the so-called supervisor allocator. This is really looks like it's going to be a tremendous ease for code that formerly had to work harder to work with both kinds of allocators. So that is really nice. Thanks.
All right. Next up is Jerry.
Hello. Yeah, thanks to Benny E and Jeff and all the others who really dove in and finally fixed the TLS issue with the ESP32S2. It's nice to have cheer lights running again on ESP32S2s. Looks great. And special thanks to Foamy Guy and Sedacious and all the other moderators who stepped in to take over. And I was running out of steam with that moderation issue last week. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. That is Hug Reports. Next up is Status Updates. Jerry, can you mute? Thank you. All right, so Status Updates is an opportunity for all of us to sync up on what we've been up to since the last meeting and what we're going to be doing until the next meeting. What we'll do is same round robin format. Take a couple minutes to let us know what you've been up to and what you're going to be up to, and feel free if there's something fun that you've been up to over the last week or going to be up to over the next week to let us know. We've heard about all kinds of projects. It doesn't necessarily have to be CircuitPython related. So with that, I will get started. So last week, published the magtag guide. It still needs a single GIF added, but other than that, the guide is pretty much ready to go, including super detailed pinouts, which if you're new to the board, could end up being super helpful, just letting you know where everything is and what all the features are. We have a cookie cutter for creating the repositories on GitHub that host our PCB files, and I had a PR merged to update that to default to the main branch instead of the master branch when the local copy is created by Git, because Git does not do that by default, but our GitHub does. Started the What CircuitPython Board is Right for You guide. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi enabled boards pages are done, and I started the built-in display page. And then today so far, updated the schematic on the CircuitPython Bluefruit guide downloads page, finished the built-in display page in the board selector guide. And something else I didn't add here, I added a quick note to the itsy bitsy NRF 52840 guide. I was pinged on Discord. A user found the fact that the pin labeled 3V, it was not clear that it was 3.3 volts. So a quick note fixed that up. So it should be clearer now. So for the rest of today and this week, next up for the board selector guide is little boards. So tiny boards, small boards, wee boards, maybe call them Lilliputian boards. I don't know. Add the GIF of entering the ROM bootloader on the magtag to the ROM bootloader page. There's already a GIF on there of how to do it for the Metro ESP32S2, but it's necessary right now to install CircuitPython, so we want to add one for the magtag as well. I belated hug report to Foamy Guy for adding magtag support to the PyBadger library. Testing that update is high on my priority list, so depending on how much time I have left today after dealing with this meeting, it'll get tested today, or that'll be first thing tomorrow. And then lower on the priority list is the fritzing object for the BME 280 and updating the guide for the BME 280 with the STEMMA QT version. The pinouts are the same, so it's lower priority because it's not, there's not really any difference between the two, it's still not going to be hard for you to figure out how to use the board with the current guide. Also not added to the notes from the meeting that we had right before this, the final things that are going to be added to the which board is right for you guide are SD card options. So boards that have SD card built in and are good for data logging. A page on chipsets that explains the difference between the different chipsets and what's good about them and why you would use one over the other. And things that CircuitPython doesn't run on as well. So once all those pages are in place, that board will get, or that guide rather, will get published. It's basically, despite the fact that on circuitpython.org you can punch in features and find boards that have features, you might not know why you would choose one board over another. So it's got a couple of sentences for every board that just explains, you know, what combination of features it has and why it would be good for one project over another. So that should be in place, and a great place for those of you who get questions from folks on Discord and that kind of thing about what CircuitPython board should I start with. It'll be a good guide to head to, and also if you are curious about what CircuitPython board might be right for you. And that is, well, I guess my over the weekend thing was I replaced a toilet. So that, and it went well, which is good because it is my understanding that it can also go very badly. With that, I have notes for Kevin Thomas that I will read off. So last week, Kevin Thomas created a Microbit v2 promotional video introducing the Talking Educational Database feature, created a Microbit version 2 C library tutorial to build custom C libraries into the Microbit version 2 firmware, created a Microbit version 2 Python module tutorial to build custom Python modules into the Microbit version 2 firmware, and worked with Foamy Guy to start the CircuitPython IoT trivia app for the Feather S2 that we are looking to complete this week or early next week. And this week, continue to work with Foamy Guy on development of the CircuitPython IoT trivia app. And next up is Maker Melissa.
Hello. Last week I wrote the magtag library and got that added into the bundle. I started working on a web serial ESP tool for being able to load stuff onto the ESP32S2 boards. And I fixed some board issues on CircuitPython.org. This week I am going to fix an issue. I'm working on fixing an issue with the 1.3-inch display on the Raspberry Pi. I'm going to make some improvements to the magtag library I'll work on fixing the Web Bluefruit Playground app. I'm going to take a look at the B&O 055 for not working with Web Serial, and I'll work on that Web Serial ESP tool some more. And that's it.
Great. So Mark, it says text only probably. Are you still text only, or would you like to read off your status update? I am going to assume text only. So last week took Adafruit _bus _device in the core out of draft, and this week not sure yet. Next up, I have notes for microdev, who is text only. Last week, added default pin definitions for my micro S2, added PCNT reset on user code reload, and worked on implementing Watchdog, NVM, Frequency IO, and I2C peripheral for the ESP32 S2. This week, I plan to continue my work on the I2C peripheral, and we'll be working on implementing more modules to further enhance the capabilities of the ESP32 S2 port. And next up is Scott.
Hello. Last week I ran down the grayscale init problem for e-ink, which meant that the grays were different between Arduino and CircuitPython. While I was in there, I noticed a Luma computation bug, which is the underlying math for converting colors to grayscales. So that was good. If you've ever noticed that blue in your picture is not well represented, there is a reason, and it should be fixed. I squeezed down the Metro M0 build so that could fit in there. And I should say that I also added the built-in display to the magtag as well. So you can just do board.display and get the e-paper display object back. I squeezed the M0 down by disabling weak module links, which only impacts OS and time on full builds. So that saved us about 100 bytes or so. Thursday, I was working on the TLS issue with io.adafruit.com, and Jepler just breezed by me and figured out what the issue was, which is awesome. This week, I got to get caught up on PRs and things, and I will be bug hunting after that. So putting my efforts wherever I see them being most useful, whether it's sleep related or SSL related or Lady Ada also just filed an issue for JSON parsing being slow. So I have an idea of how to speed that up. So I may do that as well. And I'll be taking Friday off to have a long weekend. So yeah, that's it for me.
Excellent. Have fun on your long weekend.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So next up is Zoltan.
Thanks, Katni. So in the past 2 weeks, I have partially implemented Jeff's idea of using function pointers. And I already know that this leads to massive savings in flash space or firmware size. I will have to figure out exactly which function or which, so which Python functions could benefit from this, but I think this was really a good idea. In addition, I added 2 new functions, and following up on a feature request, exposed the D type, and have been fixing smaller bugs. And I think this is my plan for the coming week. And with that, back to you, Katni.
All right, excellent. Okay, next up, I believe I have notes. Yep, from C. Grover, who is text only today. Designed the dust-proof enclosure for the finished Nuevo Workshop Corrosion Monitor. Very stable with CircuitPython 6 RC0. Adafruit IO is working nicely. Many trials and tribulations, creating abstracted sensor classes and a robust automated display scheme while managing memory use. Wonderful learning opportunity. The DC motor characterization apparatus project will commence later this week with the construction of the 2020 frame and installation of torque measuring load cells. The device is based on the Feather M4 Express, a TFT display, 2 Feather motor wings, 2 INA 260 breakouts on a custom wing, and a custom dual 24-bit DAC wing for the load cells, running CircuitPython, of course. The project is an automated dynamometer that will be used to characterize small DC motors, particularly to test and verify some new ideas to increase low-speed torque. And next up is Christian Walther.
Yesterday I have finally got those pull requests ready for the movable supervisor allocation system that I've been working on for a while. That allows carrying information from one VM run into the next. First of all, I would like to say that by no means am I expecting you to accept this. It's just a proposal. It allows to implement certain features that have been requested, but I have no opinion on how important these are. There was a small issue on some boards that I didn't notice that I will fix in the coming days on the MIMX boards and ESP32 boards. Plus, it turned out that the features that I implemented on top of that, first, the setting which file to run on the next run, and second, carrying an exception traceback from the previous run into the next. Those overflowed the flash space on some of the smaller boards. And so I was wondering, is there any standard procedure how you prioritize features that go on these small boards that don't have space for everything? I don't know, maybe we can discuss that in the weeds if people are interested in discussing that.
That would be an excellent in the weeds topic. There's not really a standard procedure, so I think it's definitely worth popping that into the weeds, and we can discuss it there.
Okay.
Excellent. So that means next up is Dan.
All right, so last week I released Art Release Candidate 2 of CircuitPython 6.0. We decided there were very minor changes, but we decided we didn't want to do a general availability release late in the week, because then we tend to get problems reported over the weekend when we can't fix them as fast. But based on the fact that nothing has come up with this release, I hope to turn this into 6.0 final, maybe after this meeting, and we can discuss that in the weeds. Another thing that came up was that you've had a couple of people who are still using Windows 7, and they had trouble because there weren't any drivers for the brand new boards, such as the QT-Py. And so I updated the Windows drivers package to include those new boards, and I did it by hand this time, but that's the last time I'm going to do that. I now know how to automate that, so I'll be doing that the next time, which we'll probably just do on demand, because there are so few Windows 7 users these days. We encourage everyone to upgrade if you haven't already, and it's still free, believe it or not. If you want details, you can ask me later. And finally, I've been pondering the user visible part of the Light Sleep, Deep Sleep API and talking to Scott a lot about that. And I started with a branch that he had, which had some of that done, and also some of the code that MicroDev has been working on, and I'm taking that from there. Okay.
Great. All right. Next up, I have notes from David Glaude, who is lurking, but has a status update. So first up, the CircuitPython meeting timestamp encoder for the clue, and there is a link to that, and for the QT-Py, which uses the scroll lock key. If I remember correctly, that's code that there's one button or something that sets it to 0, and then it uses HID to provide a timestamp from 0 forward if you press a key or a button on the board, depending on which board it is. Reevaluating what is needed to make the Enviro plus Featherwing more CircuitPython standard. In terms of PM25, retested the merged code, works, but I have a lot of UART errors, is it the cable? Made a PR with the best improvement from Gadgetoid, and tested the UART active mode. Trying to close enough clock to see if I can port that from the Matrix portal to the magtag portal. And then new hardware for an ESP32 S2 week. Feather S2 arrived, but no UF2 and no CircuitPython, troubleshooting right now. And magtag is hostage from DHL despite paying import tax 7 days ago. Next up is Foamy Guy.
All right, thanks, Kattni. So I still had a couple extra days off, so I got kind of a long list this week, but I am back to work now, so I'll probably be back to a normal size next week. But I did, I think as Kevin noted, I was working on a trivia app that lets you it will pull a trivia question and then let you answer from the 4 answers, and then it'll tell you if you're correct. And Kevin also added feature for it to keep score. So that runs on the Unexpected Maker Feather S2 with an OLED Featherwing. We're working on this week to port it to a little bit bigger screen and add some more functionality to it. Last week, I added the I guess aliases, I'm not sure what they're called, but the things that make board.spi and board.i2c and board.uart work. So those were not in the Unexpected Maker Feather S2. So I managed to figure out where to put those, and it actually worked. So that was really cool. It's only the second time I've really made an actual change inside the core, so I was really excited about that. Tested a bunch of magtag demos over the weekend. I got mine on Saturday, so hit the ground running, testing out stuff there. I added support to the PyBadger library for the magtag, or the very basics of support. And in doing so, I found my next item here, which is seems like a bug with gamepad on the ESP32S2. The values for get press get stuck at 0 after you reboot with Control-C and Control-D, like through the REPL. But the values of the digital I/O pins stay correct. So I think it's something specific to gamepad. Upcoming next week, I want to work on a way in the slideshow library to have it do text slides. So I think I had mentioned previously about making it play nicely with other things on the screen. My intention always was to get it to be able to go back and forth between images and text. And after thinking about it a little more, I think it makes sense to make that slideshow library just do the text slides also, instead of trying to hide itself and then show some text. So I'm going to tinker around with that this week. I got a second one of the matrices, 32 by 64 matrices. So I'm going to play around with the big chain together screen this week. That's on my list of things. I'm going to go and start updating the display IO examples in various different repos to use to make sure that they use the display variable and to add a comment that links people to that great new guide page. And then lastly, I'm gonna look into this. This has been something in the back of my mind for a while, but there's it's wrap nicely function. I think it's in the PyPortal library or somewhere like that. And it's able to wrap some text into multiple lines based on how many characters you want on each line, which ultimately tends to get based on the width of the display. And I think it was put into PyPortal because it was specific to the display size. I would love to get a more generic function to do that, put into display text, like on the label or somewhere inside there, so that we can use that within some of these other libraries, and we don't necessarily have to copy that wrap nicely code around to so many different places. But yeah, that's what I got. Thanks, Kenny.
Sounds great. Thank you. Next up is Higher Effect.
Alrighty, this week is more or less just the same as last week because I got a little bit derailed by some other stuff. So I'll be working on UDP, which is basically just working through a bunch of compiler errors and trying to make sure that everything goes through properly. Probably going to do a little bit more work on my SPI peripheral module, which is also having some issues. That's both of those things are what I was doing last week, so more or less just carrying it over. This week I'm gonna try and figure out a better COVID situation for myself because, the one that I'm in isn't really working that well. So hopefully we'll be a little bit more on task in the coming weeks. So
good luck with that, and definitely stay safe. All right, next up is Jeff.
Hello again. So last week, I finally made some headway on the audio output on the ESP32S2. I have some lovely looking captures of the digital signals on the Salier, and I'm watching my 3D print, and it just failed. So anyway, I tracked down NPR to fix for the ESP32S2 problem with SSL certificates that was affecting I/O and ThingSpeak. And I broke and then fixed the request library. And my excuse is, but the tests passed. This week, I'm looking into a reported ESP32S2 I2C problem, but I'm not reproducing it as reliably as Lady 80 yet. So still kind of at the looking into it phase. And once I've concluded that in some way, I'm returning to ESP32S2 audio.
Excellent. Thank you. Next up is Jerry.
Yeah, hello. Let's see. Yeah, so most of the week we just spent trying to test the fixes for the ESP32 when they came out, and playing my new magtag that I got on Saturday as well. Lots of fun there. And then yeah, the moderation stuff kind of burned me out last week, and I think I'm gonna sort of stay away from the moderation for a week, so just to regain some perspective. And I'm not gonna have much time this week anyway for much of anything due to some other demands. So mostly just trying to keep up with things, keep an eye on what's going on.
Well, good luck with that.
Thanks.
So Jerry, we could do a couple things. Do you want to get out of the community moderators role for a bit so you don't get pinged?
No, it's okay. I can ignore them.
Okay, because the other thing we could do is we could also create a role that has all the same permissions but doesn't get pinged as a way to like give people a break as well. So you'll still have the ability to moderate if you see it, but you won't get pinged if it comes up.
It's not a problem for me, but if there's a general, push for that, that'd be fine. I just need to ignore it, which I can do.
Okay. So, yeah, just know that's an option, and we need to be very careful about giving people the space.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. We really appreciate it.
And that's the case both for our moderators and everyone. If you are in a situation where you're starting to get burned out, please step away and feel free to let us know so that we're not concerned if that's something you're worried about. And we will be sure to pass that on to anyone that needs to know it. But we will always support folks taking a break to avoid burnout. So that really applies, I think, to everyone. And that is status updates. So next up is In the Weeds. In the Weeds is an opportunity for longer form discussions. They are sometimes identified ahead of time, as in the first two that are in the Weeds today, and sometimes they come out of status updates, as in the third one that is in the Weeds today. So all ways for us to have In the Weeds topics. I will turn it over to each person who posted the topic to talk about it, and then those of us who have input on it, feel free to reply and join the discussion. So with that, I will turn it over to Jerry to discuss his topic.
Yeah, hopefully, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but it came up, somebody pointed out an error in one of the RFM 69 guides, so I quickly went and fixed that in the guide. And when I was doing that, I looked at, there's been some changes to the guide that I hadn't even paid attention to. And since the RFM 69 and 9X are two good examples of typically non-UF2 boards, I wondered, is there sort of an official policy or a guide? Do we want to encourage users to upgrade the bootloader, to change the bootloader over to the UF2 bootloader, which now apparently nicely can be done via Arduino without a J-Link. So it can be done by anybody following the guide. But I just wanted to get a sense, is that the direction we really want to sort of push people? The way that guide is written, excuse me. Sorry, I have to ignore that. It really, the way the warning was put on there, it says you must upgrade to use CircuitPython. That's really not true. You can still use the BOSA bootloader, and in fact the instructions are right there. So I just want to check in with people and see what's the guidance you want to give there.
I think we could remove the "you must." If that's true, I will.
Yeah, I can go edit those, or somebody else.
Yeah, I think that's
definitely
fine.
think that should be reworded.
I think that must be really old. Yeah. because maybe
Yeah,
just because
actually, yeah, I don't remember ever seeing it before. Just I don't know where it came from, but
yeah.
It is, and then a link should be added to show. It doesn't. It right now it just says you must do it, but it doesn't tell you how. So at a minimum, too, we should put a link in over to the guide that Sean Heimel put in that tells you how to actually use the Arduino to load the new bootloader if you want to. But BOSA works fine too. So I don't know that we need to discourage people from using it.
We've had people brick their boards when they do this, so it depends on how adept they are. And
yeah, I think you can brick it either way. You can brick it with BOSA now if you're not careful too.
That's right.
And yeah, so
and your question about whether they're still shipped?
Yeah. Are those boards like the M0 Basic and the RFN boards still shipped with the BOSA bootloader?
Some of them are because we have deeper stock.
Okay.
Some of them are because the testers haven't been updated.
Okay.
The factory testers, which do the initial load. So I think the answer is yes. It's decreasing, but it's still true that there are some, and some people will always have ones that they've squirreled away in their closets, and then they take them out.
So is new stock being put? You have two bootloaders now the standard.
New boards, yes, but we might make a run of an old board and not revise the tester if we don't have time.
Right, that's what I thought. Okay. So I'll be happy to go in and make some edits to that guide, or if you want to do it, you're welcome to. Just to sort of clean up that language.
Yeah, go ahead. And
okay.
You can there is a link, there is a mirrored page or something somewhere that says how to use the INO updater. So
okay, I'll at least put a link into it and figure out how to get to that. Okay. And then I think that was. Oh yeah. Okay. So I just want to check, make sure nobody else was working on those guides. So I'll try and do a little cleanup in them.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
All right. Next up is Dan.
Okay. So the simple question. Does anybody think that we should not try to release 6.00 today since we've had no complaints about RC2?
No, I think 6.0 final today is great.
Sorry. So I will do that after the meeting then.
And I think the earlier in the week, the better, for the exact reason that you didn't release it last week.
Or get back to doing anything else. Okay, great.
Perfect. All right. And for the final topic, Christian Walther.
So some of these features I'm introducing in my new pull requests appear to overflow the flash on some of the smaller boards. I hope the infrastructure bit won't, but I'm not sure because that build failed due to unrelated reasons. But the features will probably have to be made optional, and so I was wondering, how do you decide which features should be enabled or disabled on these small boards? How have you done this in the past?
For the most part, it turns into a discussion. We sometimes disable things in smaller builds so that other things can be enabled depending on what it is, and very rarely we do multiple builds for individual boards, but that's extremely rare. We'll just open a discussion, and the PR is one good place for that discussion.
Okay.
It also depends on like how big it is.
Right.
Like if it's like over a K, then like usually you want to isolate it and not have it on for the smallest builds. Like basically the smallest builds have to stay what they are, unless by some miracle we get bytes back, which usually happens with new compiler versions.
Right.
So we can have a discussion at that point. But I fully intend on looking at your PRs today, and I'll give more specific feedback once I've looked at them.
Okay, there's no hurry from my part.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about it. Like, it's definitely a feature that I'd like to see. Especially, I'd like to, like, you laid the foundation for doing the USB descriptor stuff. Like, I'd love to be able to do more USB things, especially as the IMX comes, because that has high-speed USB, so we can be a lot more flexible. So I'm definitely interested in it. I'm not sure there's a lot of benefit on the SAMD20 ones, but whether we include it or not depends a lot on just like the trade-offs we're making and how much space we actually need.
I would say that I have a lot of requests to do HID stuff on SAMD 21s for simple things. So actually making that possible is there's actually a pent-up demand for that.
Right, different HID descriptors.
Yeah, just turning them on and off at least. Yeah.
Right.
Or turning off MSC. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the high level is we'd love to have it in the SAMD 21s. We just got to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah, then let's see how it goes.
There's also a possibility, Dan and I were discussing a bit about like maybe removing some of the status LED flashing code as we move to a world where we don't want the LED to be on all the time with sleep. So there's a chance we could free up some bytes that way as well.
Yay.
So we've got a few options. It's very tight, but I also do know that like I'm using GCC 10.2 on my box, and we get like 2,000 bytes back. So we're really just waiting for ARM to release a GCC 10 version based on that because it looks pretty good, and they release about every 6 months. So they're due for one in the next month or two.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. I discussed it on my stream on Friday as well, and had some folks that were kind of interested in the like string compression stuff as well. So there's a possibility we could get some space back by doing more, improving the string compression or compressing more strings.
It would also be interesting to see if we could, we talked about can the string library be moved externally so that you could switch languages by changing a file in CircuitPy or something like that. Right. Which is the way to gain space back and also reduce the number of builds we have to do and some other things. So
at the cost of it not working by default.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Which is my beef with that. But.
Yeah.
All right. I think we are ready to wrap up. So this has been the CircuitPython Weekly for November 16th, 2020. Thank you to everyone who participated. If you want to support Adafruit and CircuitPython, and those of us that work on CircuitPython, consider purchasing from the Adafruit shop at adafruit.com. The video of this meeting will be released on YouTube at youtube.com/Adafruit, and the podcast will be available on major podcast services. It will also be featured in the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter. Please visit adafruitdaily.com to subscribe. The next meeting will be held on Monday as usual. I believe that is Monday the 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. The meeting is held on the Adafruit Discord, which you can join at any time by going to adafru.it/discord, and we are available there all week. To be notified about the meeting and any changes to the time or day, you can be asked to be added to the CircuitPythonistas role on Discord. We usually send a couple notifications per week, mostly regarding the meeting. And that is our CircuitPython Weekly. We hope to see you all next week. Thanks, everyone.